Hello everybody and welcome back to another weekly recap. Unfortunately this was meant to be out yesterday, but I had a few things come up. Anyway, what a week for old school RuneScape. We had a few crazy things happen this week. The main one that everyone is talking about is of course the Twisted Bow bug. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes here. We also received the Song of the Elves poll blog, and we have quite a bit more information about the requirements for the quest, what the content is going to look like, and just generally some more information. We also received one content update this week, which was just a simple quality of life update. Of course, it broke the entire game as per usual, but still a few nice things there. Anyway guys, hope you enjoy, and let's get started. So I'm going to quickly talk about the Twisted Bow respawn bug, just in case anyone hasn't heard about it yet. So early in the morning, my time anyway, on Thursday, a few people noticed that there was actually just a Twisted Bow on the ground just near the farming guild. It respawned every 60 seconds, and this was a massive overlook on Jagex's part. It's still undetermined how this ended up in the live game. Clearly the QA testers should have caught it. Of course, it's definitely a huge mistake. So big in fact that we ended up having a server-wide rollback of around 3 or 4 hours. Now at first the decision was to not do a rollback and attempt to fix everything on a case-by-case basis, trying to find out where all of the Twisted Bows came from and went. I'm sure they quickly realized that that was not going to be feasible, so a few hours after that first announcement on Twitter, they decided to do a full server rollback, which I commend them for doing because it is the correct decision. There's no way they would have gotten all of the Twisted Bows. We can see here a graph on GE Tracker shows the Twisted Bow crashing down immensely and instantaneously. People were alching them. People were dying with them, people were trading them, some people even sold them for gold. Like, it was chaotic. There's no way we could have left that in the game. So a rollback was the only option, and I am glad that they made it. Now, unfortunately for some players, a rollback was not favorable. While some people managed to keep their hardcore Ironman status even though they died, a lot of people lost items or 4 hours of progress, and even for some people, they lost things entirely even though they had them before. For example, somebody bought something on the Grand Exchange for 50 mil, and when they rolled the server back, they both did not have their item and did not have the cash. They completely disappeared into a dark void, and that has to do with how the game saves your state. It's not all done at the exact same time, so there can be some discrepancies which can cause items to dupe as well as just take items out of the game. And unfortunately that's why a rollback, at least with the current technology that they have, is not an ideal solution. So it really does suck for a lot of people, but unfortunately that is really the only option we had. So with that out of the way, this week we had one content update and one poll blog. I'm going to quickly go over the poll blog first. On February 25th, we received the Song of the Elves poll blog for the main content. We now know the requirements for the Song of the Elves quest. Some of the notable ones are of course Morning Ends Part 2, as well as 70 in quite a few different skills, including agility, construction, farming, herblore, hunter, mining, smithing, and woodcutting. In my opinion, agility and mining is the worst, so we did dodge the bullet there with no rune crafting, so that's great. Now this is similar to the first poll blog we received a few months ago, although there are a few major changes. One big one is they are no longer offering the herb patch as part of the new area, which I think was a good idea because the amount of herb patches we have now is absolutely insane. There's way too many. The set effect of the crystal armor was buffed and applied to individual pieces, so now you no longer need the entire set to receive that buff. So while I talk about the gauntlet and the crystal armor once again, they do also expand on a few new pieces of content. The skilling boss now has a name, which is Zalcano. Zalcano is a new boss that is immune to traditional combat damage. Instead, you will need to use your mining, smithing, and runecrafting skills to create magical charges capable of destroying her stone armor. So this is the mining tot, in air quotes, boss we've been waiting for quite a while. We also have crystal tools. Zalcano will drop crystal tool seeds, which will be combinable with crystal shards to create 3 new pieces of equipment. The crystal pickaxe will have a 1 in 4 chance to mine an ore 1 tick faster than the rune pickaxe, up from 1 out of 6 from the dragon pickaxe. The crystal axe will be 15% more efficient at chopping logs than the rune axe, which is about 10% better than the dragon axe. And the crystal harpoon will have a 35% faster catch rate when fishing a harpoon fishing spot, up from 20% from the dragon harpoon. So there'll be a few niche uses for these crystal tools. There's a lot of new information. I would go ahead and read the poll blog itself. And now let's move on to the content update. So this week we received some changes to the Chambers of Xeric, as well as a few quality of life buffs. Now the prayer skill guide actually shows the relevant prayer instead of just the kind of star. The Dragon Defender is more red. Well, I guess that's important. Now the one that caused a ton of problem is the Hespori growth indicator. Coding the Hespori growth indicator was clearly somehow related to there being a Twisted Bow on the ground. I'm still uncertain to how that actually happened, but this clearly was the piece of content that caused the mix-up. And once again, there is a myriad of small changes. For example, Konar will no longer assign black, red, blue, or green dragons within the catacombs of Kourend if the player has under 100 combat. That's good because a lot of people were complaining about how long these tasks can take because there's only the brutal versions of the dragons there. And that's pretty much it for content updates this week. So now I'm going to go over a few pieces of news that are related to the community, and one that may actually been over a week ago, but fuck it, I don't really care, is the most recent data stream. We have a ton of interesting data that has been compiled for us for some fun statistics to have a look over. For example, the total time to reach max and other milestone levels. So I'm assuming this is game time, not total days. So to reach 500 total level, it takes on average 9 days or 9 days worth of hours in game. And to reach max, it takes 250 days of playtime. That is a lot of time. We can see what skill gained the most experience this year. That is hit point, closely followed by ranged, strength, and most of the other combat stats. The least trained skill this year was, no surprise, rune crafting. Another really interesting one was how much money has been removed by the dual arena tax. And the answer is 4 trillion GP has been claimed as tax by the dual arena in coins and platinum tokens. The individual has paid the most in taxes has been 26 billion in taxes. That is ridiculous. We can see the average daily playtime took a pretty big hit with the release of mobile. Not a huge surprise there. Generally, people are not going to be playing as long on their phone, but actually has recovered a significant amount. That's pretty interesting. The items with the largest volumes are feathers, fire runes, pure essence, air runes, toggle, mind runes, water rune, earth rune, arrow shaft, and flax. Feathers boasting 33 trillion of them. And one last interesting stat is 36% of all hardcore Ironmans created have died. The biggest hotspot, of course, being the wilderness. So once again this week we had a RuneLite update. What we have had released is a web-based loot tracker. And this whole update overall is focused on improving the website. You can now log into runelite.net and view details about your RuneLite account, which includes your current Slayer task, a boss log, the loot tracker, and a new Grand Exchange history tracker. You can do things like exporting your loot tracker as a JSON file. Same thing for your Grand Exchange history, which is extremely useful. You can have a look at your account overview, which again will show your current Slayer task, as well as your point streak, as well as your current points. You can have a look at the boss log, so you can see how many times you've killed the Abyssal Sire, the Chemical Hydra, and really anything else. And we have something similar for the Grand Exchange. The hit point plugin can now recolor the hit point icon based on the type of poison that you have, and local RuneLite settings can now be imported into an account setting by clicking the import button in the info panel when you log in. Once again, we have a few minor bug fixes to certain plugins, but another very positive update. So this week we did receive a Q&A, and I'm going to quickly go over some of the more important questions. They talked quite a bit about the Song of the Elves, along with the requirements, which we already went over. The first question is, are there any plans on buffing magic in PVM? As a whole, very few bosses have magic as a viable strategy. Kieran said, do we buff magic or do we buff a new boss that is best attacked with magic? Probably the latter, since buffing the entire magic attack system is a much larger ask. They would love to make a boss that is magic based, but it's hard to balance. The Abyssal Sire was the boss that we went the furthest with, and it wasn't hugely enjoyable. How do you feel about range being the strongest thing for PVM, and what can be done about it? It's perhaps about having variety in boss types and mechanics rather than buffing or nerfing an exact attack style. They'd really like to encourage hybriding for a boss via something like a Salamander, a Sword Bow, or something like that. Is it possible to add the Crystal Quiver idea to the Song of the Elves? We like the idea and will likely put it in the second poll for rewards. Are there any plans on improving the friending system? Currently, if you friend someone, there's no notification or system to tell you that you've been added back. Maybe engine work? We once again had a question about Group Ironman. They know that we want it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of engine content required to add in the additional game mode. We would like to offer this to you eventually. Can we add a buy maximum button to the Grand Exchange? For example, if I had 100k in my inventory, it would automatically adjust the quantity to suit how much GP I had. The moderation team quite liked that idea. Hopefully they're going to add it to their backlog. Can Zulcano offer a large amount of pure essence as a reward? For Ironman, the ways of getting it are via killing Zulrah or Nightmare Zone. It will be a higher level content, so it won't exactly solve that problem. They maybe would like to add in a way to convert dense essence into pure essence, or maybe something like the minnows. So Crystal Armor was in the dev blog originally, but they pulled it out. The reason they stated is that we pulled the Crystal Armor from the blog. We weren't really happy with the balancing and design, and we would rather include it in the next poll. Extras and rewards. We're going to be considering it where and how we can introduce it and balance it in a good way. It's a work in progress. Can we get a notification on our phone when something sells in the Grand Exchange? They said it's being worked on by an engine team. We won't see it until maybe summer, but we could also use it for farming and other things as well. I am extremely excited for this. I was really hoping with the release of mobile they would have already completed that engine work, but either way, having notifications when a farm patch is done would be extremely useful. Same thing for the Gun Exchange, that would be extremely helpful. Anyway guys, that is it for the weekly recap. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave the video a like, I would appreciate it, and I will see you next time.